Well guys, as the title of the video suggests, I was recently denied warranty coverage here on my GM truck. This is my 2024 GMC Sierra 2500 HD. I've had it for almost 2 years, and recently I took the truck in for some warranty work and I was denied coverage, and so I had to pay out of pocket. Now, I want to be perfectly clear right out of the gate, this video is not to bash GM or the dealership that I took the truck to. Really, my hope is that you can learn from my mistakes, save some money, and also I can learn from you, the viewer. And so throughout the video, definitely drop your comments down below. I really want them to be constructive though and help out us truck owners. And so with that, let me jump right into the warranty issue that I was denied coverage. And I've got some notes here to help keep this as concise as possible. But basically, this is my daily driver. Essentially, one day I took it out, turned on my left turn signal, and all of a sudden got an error in the EVIC, and it said check left front turn lamp, and it was hyper flashing as well. So after I got back from my errand, I looked at the truck here, turned on the left turn signal again, got the same error message, and of course the left turn signal right here was not blinking. All the other turn signals, the left rear was blinking just fine. It was just the front left right here. And guys, what you're looking at is a video that I recorded before I took the truck in for the warranty work. So what you're looking at are the exact symptoms that I had on my truck. And so initially it looked like it was just the left turn signal there in the front headlight assembly. But as I went around the truck, I noticed that the front left amber marker, the running light that goes above the wheel well, was also out. It wasn't on at all when the parking lights were on. And then I also noticed out back, the right rear C-shaped LED accent in the tail lamp was also out. That's only a parking lamp, parking light. And so that was out as well. So it was those three lights essentially that were out, even though the EVIC was only giving me an error message about the left front turn signal. And initially I did some basic troubleshooting, checking the fuses, did some searches online, but there was nothing obvious coming up that would address the symptoms I was encountering. So I realized I needed to take the truck in to a GM dealer. The GM dealer that I normally go to for recalls that I've taken the truck to in the past, they were booked up. And so being that it was a left turn signal, I needed to get that fixed, as soon as possible. I took the truck to a different dealer and I was able to get in the very next day. It was very smooth dropping the truck off, and they even gave me a free Lyft ride home. I've never had that before, so that was a pretty unique experience. But I dropped the truck off, showed them the symptoms that I was encountering, and then got a phone call a couple hours later, and they said, hey, the tech has diagnosed everything. It looks like it's the lighting control module that has failed, and that's what's leading to the symptoms. Well, then about a half hour later, I got another call from the dealer, and this time they said, hey, customer, did you realize that you've got aftermarket LED bulbs in your rear tail lamps on the truck? And I said, well, yeah, I had kind of forgotten about them because I'd installed those aftermarket LEDs about 18 months prior. They've worked flawlessly. In fact, I've done a couple different videos. I'll put cards up for them reviewing the bulbs. They're from GTR Lighting, which is a really high quality LED bulb manufacturer. And because this is an SLE, the rear taillight bulbs are not LEDs. They were incandescent from the factory. And so I'd swapped those out pretty much right after I got the truck, and they have worked flawlessly. And so the dealer said, well, hey, those aftermarket bulbs are what we think is causing the problem with your lights acting up. So even though it was just the front left and the amber marker in the left and the rear right C-shaped LED, all those were OEM lights. Even though those are the ones malfunctioning, the dealer said, hey, we think it's the presence of those aftermarket LED bulbs that you've got. So we need to take those out. Well, fortunately, I had saved all the original incandescent bulbs. I had actually kept them in the glove box of my truck. So I said, hey, they're in the glove box. Go ahead and swap them out and see if the theory, proves correct. So then maybe another 30, 60 minutes later, got another phone call from the dealer, and they say, hey, bad news. We swapped out all the aftermarket LED bulbs you had. I had them in the tail lamps, one on each side, plus the reverse, plus the license plate bulbs. So 6 bulbs in total. We swapped them out, put the original incandescent bulbs back in, but the problem still persists. Nothing has changed. So we're going back to the original theory that it's the lighting control module. And so we've got the part on order. It's going to come in the next day. We get you all replaced. But Because you had those aftermarket LED bulbs in your rear tail lamps, we believe that was the culprit for why the lighting control module went bad. And so unfortunately, customer, we're not going to be able to cover this under warranty. You're going to have to pay out of pocket for that lighting control module. Is that okay with you? Well, naturally, my gut kind of knee-jerk reaction was, wait a second, you're telling me that the presence of those aftermarket bulbs are responsible for a lighting control module when those aftermarket bulbs were, flawlessly working still, right? That was kind of my knee-jerk reaction to fight it. But then I realized, you know what? I got to have the turn signal, the lights working. And so, yeah, just go ahead and fix it. I'll pay out of pocket. Well, fast forward 24 hours later, the very next day, I got a phone call in the afternoon. The dealer said, hey, good news. We got the lighting control module replaced. That solved the issue. And now all the lights are working again. So your truck is ready to pick up. And so I got the invoice at pickup, and like I said, I was paying out of pocket in this case, and it ended up being a few $100s essentially. To be fair, even though I disagreed with the dealer denying warranty coverage, they did try to discount the parts and labor, and so my understanding is it would have been significantly more expensive if they charged me the full rate. So I do appreciate that gesture, but my gut feeling was still that it was not the aftermarket LEDs that led to the failure of the lighting control module in my truck. And for those curious, on the actual service invoice, it states aftermarket LED light bulbs in taillights and tag lights caused intermittent open and lighting control module. Now, I actually reached out to the manufacturer of these aftermarket LED bulbs. These are from GTR Lighting. These are some of the highest quality aftermarket LED bulbs out there. And like I said, I've done other videos on these that you can watch if you're interested. The ones that go in the turn signals, because of hyper flashing issues with different, wattage and amperage, they give you this little resistor right here that basically takes care of all the hyper flashing issues. It's a plug and play though. You can see here it's got the factory connector on it. So when I installed these, this is the reverse one right here, by the way, it's just plain and simple. But when I installed these over 18 months ago, I didn't cut any wires or make any modifications to the harness. I basically just plugged all these in, and they've all been working flawlessly for over 18 months before I had this particular incident. And I want to clarify too, that they were still working when I took the truck in to the dealer for this particular warranty issue. So I reached out to GTR and just said, hey, here's my situation, what happened? Have you ever heard about this before? Your bulb's essentially causing damage to the lighting control module on GM trucks, because they sell thousands of LED bulbs and have lots of experience. And they said, no, this would be a first for us. We have never heard about a customer coming back and having a problem with the lighting control module after installing their bulbs. And again, guys, just to be clear, I had been running these bulbs for over 18 months on my truck, over 15,000 miles, and never got a single error, not a single hyper flash or any other kind of malfunction out of these bulbs. Of course, there's also the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act. I wasn't real familiar with it. I remember hearing about it. It was something that was passed in the mid-70s and basically gives protection to us as consumers so that if you have aftermarket parts on your vehicle, the vehicle manufacturer can't just deny warranty coverage based on the presence alone of the aftermarket parts, such as the LED bulbs that I had installed. Instead, you have to prove that that aftermarket part specifically led to the failure of the component that is being warranted, and that's why the manufacturer can then deny warranty coverage only if they prove. And so, of course, in that service invoice, like I read, it was described as, hey, those aftermarket LED bulbs had an intermittent open, and that's what led to the failure of the lighting control module. And so, guys, those are the details of how I was denied warranty coverage here on my GM truck. And like I said initially, my knee-jerk reaction was, I want to fight this just based on principle alone, right? Because of the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, right? Even though I only had to pay a few $100s out of pocket, I'm going to fight this. But I started looking into what really would be involved to fight those charges and, bringing a GM field tech out to verify and the time and effort that I'd have to spend on it. And I started thinking about it later, said, it's really not worth the time and effort in this case. Now, if it was a $10,000 bill, you better believe that I would want to challenge the dealership's decision. But in this case, it was only a few $100s. Sometimes you have to choose your battles. And for me, this just wasn't a hill to die on ultimately. Now in the remainder of the video, I really want this to be the constructive part, and I want to share, what I learned from my mistakes so that you can save money if you're in the same boat as I was. And so the first thing that I learned, guys, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but in the owner's manual, this is from page 333, at least for the HD trucks. You can see front and center right there, it says that you are not supposed to put LED light bulbs where there were incandescent light bulbs. And it specifically says that it can cause damage to the vehicle electrical system. And I had not read that before. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that because I have, like I said, promoted these LED bulbs in several videos and talked about how much I like them. I did not realize that the owner's manual specifically says, hey, don't put these in. And so I wanted to put that out there in the front. I apologize, guys, because I just didn't know any better. It's my understanding that that clause there has been in GM owners manuals for pretty much all their vehicles, maybe for the better part of the last decade. To be fair, there are a lot of different LED bulbs on the market, and not all of them are this high quality. Not all of them have these, nice resistors in place to prevent electrical issues. And so I wanted to mention that up front because after all, guys, it's my fault for not reading the owner's manual there, right? But I also wanted to talk a little bit about aftermarket equipment in general, because if you've seen any of my other videos, I have done a lot of upgrades and mods to the truck, and many of them have involved electrical components, everything from the DJI DC to DC charger, the subwoofer amp that I installed, of course the LED lights, and there have been other things, a wireless charging pad that's in the center. I mean, lots of different aftermarket components that I've added onto the truck. And so I started thinking, well, let's say that one day my infotainment system goes out and the screen completely goes out, right? Well, a couple months back, I installed an aftermarket subwoofer under the passenger seat. And so it is connected, to the speaker wires. But let's say I took the truck in to the dealer and they started looking at the infotainment system and they realized, hey, you've got an aftermarket subwoofer connected to the speaker wires, and those speaker wires are connected to the infotainment system. Customer, we're going to deny warranty coverage on that infotainment system screen because it's connected to something aftermarket, right? That's just a big hypothetical. Hopefully that would not happen. But it got me thinking, well, how can I avoid a situation like that? And so I use that as an example because when I did that subwoofer upgrade, at the time, I did not spend the extra $70 or so to get a specialized harness that would allow me to interrupt the speaker wires without actually tapping into them. It was about 70 bucks or so, and I decided, I'd rather just save that money and use T-taps, tap into the actual speaker wires, and save that money. But in hindsight, after going through this experience, I think if I could go back all over again, I probably would just spend the extra on that $70 harness so that I would not alter the wires in any way, so that if I ever had an issue with the infotainment system, I could just unplug the harness, put everything back to normal, then take the truck into the dealer and let them fix it. And that way they wouldn't be concerned about something aftermarket, being connected to it. So in my case, specifically with this LED bulb issue that led to the denial of warranty coverage on my truck, in hindsight, it would have been prudent for me to take all of these LED bulbs out of my truck before and then put the incandescents back in, then take it into the dealership and have them diagnose everything. And then it would have been covered under warranty. Now I want to be really clear in doing that I'm not encouraging you to, remove some kind of alteration that you've recently done that you think is responsible for whatever's broken that you're taking in for warranty coverage, to take advantage of GM. If you've installed something recently and you are pretty sure that that is the culprit, let's say I just installed these bulbs and immediately after installing them, I got the left front turn signal error. Well, then I would know, okay, yeah, it was probably these bulbs and it wouldn't be right for me to take them out and blame it on the truck itself. But in my case, I have been running these bulbs for over 18 months and they were operating flawlessly, never had an issue with them whatsoever. And so I really don't think that they ultimately were responsible. And so I probably should have just removed them, put the incandescent bulbs back in there, and that would have solved the problem. And guys, when I took the truck into the dealership to have the warranty work performed, it wasn't as if I intentionally neglected to tell them about the aftermarket LED bulbs installed in the rear. I just completely forgot about them because they had been there for over 18 months and I just didn't see the connection from the rear to the front left turn signal. I didn't imagine that these would be to blame there. And so really, in hindsight, I should have removed these bulbs, put all the incandescents back in there. Again, not to hide the fact that I was running aftermarket LED bulbs, but I really think these ended up being kind of low-hanging fruit, so to speak, for the dealer to blame. And so removing them would have solved that issue. So again, that's a conscience issue that you got to think through. I'm not encouraging you to deceptively, change something that you recently did that is responsible for an issue on your truck. But if it's been there for a while and you're pretty sure it's not the culprit, I don't see anything wrong with removing that aftermarket component. So just, got me thinking about, as I do these aftermarket mods, let me make sure I'm doing them in a way that I can undo them if I ever have issues and I need to take it into the dealership while the truck is still under warranty. And then guys, really the last thing that I learned in this whole experience was just to become more informed as a consumer with the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act. I mean, this has been around for about 50 years and it's designed to protect us as consumers so that a vehicle manufacturer cannot, deny warranty coverage just based on the presence of an aftermarket part like this aftermarket LED bulb. They have to prove that this part actually is responsible for whatever went wrong, and then they can deny the warranty coverage. And if it was a bigger bill, like I said before, let's say that my transmission or engine went out, heaven forbid, right? And I have an aftermarket Borla exhaust on the truck, and the dealer came back and said, customer, the transmission or the engine failed because you have an aftermarket exhaust and it was building up some pressure and it caused things to fail. I don't think that would ever happen. It's a very distant connection there, but let's just say hypothetically that was it. Well, you better believe that I'm going to fight something like that because it's a significantly more expensive bill to pay, thousands of dollars, right, to have something like that repaired. And so I think it's very helpful to become more familiar with this act. I've never had to deal with it before. And so really this is my hope that those of you watching, maybe you've had to go down this path before and maybe you've had to battle with the vehicle manufacturer and use the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act. Comment below and share, what was that process like? I mean, where did you start? What did that process look like? And I think that would be really helpful for others that are watching this and myself to learn from. So definitely drop a comment down below. And guys, like I said at the beginning of the video, I did not record and publish this to bash GM or the dealership that I took the truck to. Really, in the end, I just wanted to put this content out there so that you can learn from my mistakes and save yourself some money. And really, in the grand scheme of things, I'm thankful that it wasn't more expensive. And I'm thankful that the dealer was at least willing to discount the parts and labor to work with me, even though I disagreed with them on denying the warranty coverage. Well, guys, I hope this video was helpful to you. As always, thanks for watching.